Now the Triumph Tiger 900 is one of the best-selling bikes in the UK, and for good reason. It's a brilliant all-rounder, packed full of features, and I think in a brilliant looking aesthetic package. But Triumph updated the 1200 models this year, and in doing so they stripped off loads of weight. The previous Gen 1200 was a pretty hefty bike, so much so that it might have put off some middleweight owners from upgrading. But now with this new lighter weight version, is it worth going for the more powerful bike, or is it just overkill and the perfectly good Tiger 900 will suffice? Well, in this video I'll go through the key strengths of each lineup, and at the end I'll tell you personally which one I'd pick. So first up, we'll start with the 900, and a massive thanks to Fowlers Motorcycles in Bristol for lending me their demo today. I'm sure they'll be happy to help out if you want to demo either their Tiger 900s or 1200s, so visit the link down in the description for more information. Now this particular bike is the GT Pro, so this is the top spec road biased version, and then also you've got a Rally and a Rally Pro, and they're more off-road biased. They get taller suspension and larger diameter spoke wheels, and so if you are someone who likes to take an adventure bike off-road, then that's certainly the choice, but this is a great road bike, an all-rounder and middleweight tourer. Generally you'll find with the Pro variants of each model that you get a lot of extra features as standard, so things like heated grips, heated seats for both the rider and passenger, and this particular bike gets an electronically adjustable rear shock, so you can set it to quite comfy or you can firm it up for sportier riding. But across the lineup, one of the key strengths of the 900 when you set it against the 1200 is the weight. I mean, the 1200 has been on a big diet. They've found weight savings across the engine, the frame, the swing arm, the bodywork, pretty much anywhere they could find it really. But still, you can't get around the fact that it's a much bigger bike than the 900, and so the equivalent models are going to come in quite a bit heavier. On the move, it might not seem that noticeable, but if you're doing low speed maneuvers and town work, then that's when it starts to become more apparent. And that's also going to be true off-road, where the extra power you get with the 1200 is going to become less meaningful. And so you may as well go for the lighter, more manageable, more agile, more maneuverable bike that's easier to muscle around. And that's not to say the 1200 is a bad bike off-road. We did a whole day on the international press launch in Portugal, and I was super impressed with it. But personally, if I had to choose one for riding off-road, I've done plenty of miles on the 900 off-road as well, then I'd go for the 9. Another big factor for riders who aren't super tall, or for anyone who likes to be able to flat foot their bikes, is going to be the seat height. Now the two GT models of the 900 can be adjusted between 820 and 840 mil, and the two Rally versions are adjustable between 860 and 880. The GT 1200s though, they go between 850 and 870, with the Rally up to a whopping 875 to 895 millimeters, so that's a properly tall bike. So you're always going to be a little bit lower for the equivalent spec bike, but the real killer blow is that the 900 is available as the GT Low. That uses a revised suspension setup. That means it's right down to an adjustment between 770 mil and 790, which is lower than most regular street bikes. So for super short riders, that's clearly the one to go for. And even though the Tiger 1200 does have a 20 mil lower seat accessory, it's still a massive gulf when it comes to comparing it with that GT Low. Last up is the price. So the GT starts at £11,595. That's the entry point into the Tiger 9 range. And even the most fully kitted out Rally Pro, so that gets like heated grips and seat, a center stand, crash bars, peripheral light, all the riding modes, that top model is still cheaper than the entry point to the Tiger 12 lineup. Once you start working your way up through the 1200s, you'll see the price climbing pretty quickly. And while I'd say it's fairly competitive when you look at similar bikes from other manufacturers, it still can't help to make the eye water a little when you compare it to the 9. And so if you are on a bit of a budget, then I reckon the two Pro models in the 900 lineup look like the best bang for your buck. Now look, before we get onto the strong points of the 1200, I just want to say a massive thanks to SysApp for sponsoring this video. If you're going to buy a big adventure bike like this, surely it's going to become your pride and joy, and so you'll do anything you can to protect it. Well, fortunately, SysApp's GPS tracker is nice and compact and easy to install, and is perfect for any bike. Simply connect it to the battery terminals and hide it somewhere discreetly, and you can then check in on the location of your bike at any time using their app. And look, don't worry, it won't drain your battery. It's got an accelerometer built in, so it only activates and draws charge when the bike's actually moving. In fact, it'll even alert you if your battery gets low, so you know you've got to get it home and top it up. Plus, you get all sorts of other features in their app like route planning and ride history and the ability to set up group rides. And so it's a great product at a really competitive price, and there are no monthly subscription fees, so head to the link down in the description to get yours. And they've also been kind enough to give me a 10% discount code for my viewers, and you'll find that down there too. So once again, a massive thanks to SysApp for supporting the channel. Now on to the 1200s, and we've got a similar naming convention to the 900s. So the GT is more road focused and then the Rally more off-road, and both of those models are available in an Explorer spec, which we'll get onto later. This one here is a top of the range Rally Explorer, and for me it just looks like an absolute monster. The big one for me with the Tiger 12 versus the 9 is the power. This makes about 150 PS. It's up on the previous generation quite significantly, and that is a big difference versus that 900 engine. And then you've also got the weight savings on this generation, and so if you compare it to the previous 1200, which already felt like a fairly quick bike to me, you know, this one really is rapid. And really that gives you two advantages, the first of which is pretty obvious, which is that if you like to ride quickly, if you come in from maybe like a sports bike or naked bike background, but you just want something more comfortable, then this is the one that's going to feel a lot more satisfying under acceleration. There's still plenty of fun to be had on the 900. I've got an 800, which is similar-ish in power output, and I don't particularly get bored of riding it. But yeah, this engine has plenty in common with the Speed Triple, so that should give you some indication of what it's about. Secondly to that though, if you're thinking of going touring like fully loaded, so with a passenger and full luggage, taking the kitchen sink with you, then you might start to feel the limits of the 900, especially when you're cruising at motorway speeds and you might want to make a quick overtake. The 1200 has a lot more in reserve in that respect, so there's plenty more power, plenty more torque, and it's gonna really fly as soon as you twist the throttle, whether you're doing, you know, 30 or 70. So if that sort of riding makes up a decent proportion of your intended usage, then certainly this is the one to go for. And I should also add, from a touring perspective, it's shaft driven, so there's no chain maintenance, which clearly is good. The other thing that's going to make it a better tourer is the comfort level. So firstly, this seat is a bit more cushy, there's more space, and I think that's true of both the passenger seat and the rider's seat. That extra height in the seat as well might feel more comfortable to some riders, especially those who are on the tall side. You've got more space with the bars, with the seat down to the pegs to stretch out, and that might save you cramping up when you're doing long stints in the saddle. There's better wind protection. I think the screen is a little bit better done. It used to be electronically adjustable on the previous gen, but they got rid of that as part of those weight savings. But this is still a really nice, easy to use action, and it provides plenty of protection, especially on this Explorer model where you get the bigger tank. We'll get onto this in a moment, but of course it being wider shouldered, that's going to keep a little bit of wind off your legs. And then across the whole lineup, you've got electronically adjustable suspension, so right down to the base model. It's the latest and greatest from Showa, and it's semi-active, so what that does is reads the riding conditions. If it can detect that you're pretty much just cruising in a straight line, it's going to bias a little bit more towards a luxurious comfort. But when it detects that you're banking over and you're on the gas and then on the brakes, it knows that you want a little bit more handling from the bike, and so it's going to bias towards like firmer damping. So with all those factors combined, if you're going to do one of those massive days in the saddle, or if you're going to do like days on end, weeks of touring and holidays on the bike, the 1200 is the one you want. Now the standard GT and Rally 1200s get a similar tank size to the 900 bikes, but it's these two Explorer versions that get the whopping 30-litre tank that's meant to stick it to BMW's GS Adventure. That means that the range is just incredible. There are very few bikes on the market that can match this sort of capacity. So when it comes to touring, if you're someone who doesn't like to stop that often, if you like to just smash the miles out, and also if you like to visit slightly more remote locations where perhaps the opportunity to fuel up is going to be more scarce, then the Explorers, you know, despite that much higher price point, are going to be pretty compelling. It's also worth adding another great feature on these Explorer models is the rear-facing radar, and what that gives you is blind spot detection. So if it detects a vehicle sitting in that sort of rear three-quarter, it's going to light up this LED on the inside of the mirror, and that's just another little safety net when you're performing those lifesavers and moving over into another lane. Not essential by any means, but after having used it plenty, it's something that personally I'd rather have than not. So both amazing bikes in my opinion, but which one would I go for? Well, as I already said, my current bike is a Tiger 800 XCA, so that's the previous gen to the Tiger 900 Rally Pro, and for me it just offers such a great combination of versatility, bags of features, good performance, and affordability. And so for me it'd be really difficult to look past the Rally Pro, which is basically the modern equivalent. That said, if I was in a different phase of my life where I didn't have a young family and I was able to go on tours and go away for holidays on the bikes, then I think I'd be much more tempted by the 12. It's just a massive step up in terms of power. As always though, I'd love to know which one you'd pick down in the comments below and why. And if you're new here and you want to see more videos like this, hit subscribe and I'll catch you in the next one.